Yay! We got there. Happy Friday. So let me just, and you can hear me okay?
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, I'm Laura Rose, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm founder of LGBT Mummies and Proud Foundations. And as we all know, today we'll be talking in this breakout room about LGBT plus perinatal and mental health experiences. And the reading pane should come up. There you go. So I just want to cover off with a trigger warning. There will be discussion of loss, birth trauma, rape and mental health. And if at any point anyone finds it really difficult, you can switch the camera off, you can turn your sound off. And if you do want to exit and go into another room and come back later, that's absolutely fine. In regards to just housekeeping, I use inclusive language, so additive language, women and birthing people. And this is a safe space for anyone to share, ask questions, and if anyone feels uncomfortable with it being recorded, you can just put your hand up, put it in the chat that you want to ask a question, but you want it to be paused. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So just a bit about who we are, and I'll cover it off quickly. We're LGBT Mummies, and our sole purpose as an organisation is to educate, support and advocate for LGBT plus women and queer people that identify as mums on the path to motherhood or parenthood. We have over 20 support groups globally online for people to share their lived experiences and come together to seek guidance. We hold events and we do a lot of policy and campaign work, fighting not just for those that we support in our community and our organisation, but all LGBT plus people and their families through healthcare, maternity specifically, and also fertility and general society and law.
Sorry, Laura Rose.
Yeah.
Is it meant to be recording? Because it isn't there isn't the recording symbol to show it's recording.
Oh,
it's recording for me.
I've got a little red dot. That's all right.
Sorry.
That's okay, don't worry, no problem. I've got a little red dot, so I'm assuming it's recording. And we're Proud Foundations, so so that's our educational arm, and we work with organisations just to improve their understanding of the LGBT plus community as a whole through LGBT plus competency, but also our paths to family creation, who we are, our sexualities, our identities, and how we've created our family. And we work with the government, the NHS, different trusts, lots of different amazing organisations and charity organisations to improve their understanding, but also address what their support services are and what it looks like and what it needs to look like moving forward, but doing so in a collaborative, co-produced, positive way towards an inclusive future for our families. So just a little snapshot, and some of you may have read this in the news, that with the census, there's a lot more information now about our community and the percentages of us floating about in the UK. So there are 1.5 million LGBT plus people in the UK, and that accounts for 3.2% of the population, which doesn't sound a lot, but there's actually quite a few of us that you may have interactions with through the system in daily life that will need support and care through our journey. And then there's just a little bit more detail about who is gay and lesbian, how people identify, other orientations, and also around gender identity, which I think is really crucial, especially right now with the current political climate and the difficulties that trans and non-binary people are going through at the moment, specifically with the hate that's going on in the media and a lot of difficulty they're going through on their journeys. And I wanted to note as well that that's just based on household. During COVID, it's only for 16 plus. 7.5% of people refrained from answering at all, and 0.2% didn't answer the gender identity question. So again, there's probably a much bigger lot of people that weren't accounted for in this. And again, I say based on household because if one person within a household is writing the census details for everyone and that person isn't out, or they're not, haven't discussed with their family, again, it's not being collected. And 77% of LGBT plus millennials want to start a family in the future. So there's a lot of us going on that parenting journey either now or have that future intent to do so. Little bit about our journey that I'll cover off, just to give you an understanding of what those barriers, implications, difficult journeys look like. So both my wife's pronouns are she and her, and we identify as a lesbian couple. And we started our journey around 12 years ago. We wanted to have a family. And for us, the right journey felt that we wanted to go through a fertility clinic because we felt at the time we had that protection by law. Again, that was just right for us. It's not right for all people. We're both bio and birthing parents, and that means that we've both biologically related to one or more of our children and that we've also birthed one or more of our children. We've got 3 children by IUI and IVF, and between us we've been through 12 cycles of fertility treatment. And at the time when we started, even back then, you're talking about 10, 12 years ago, there wasn't no peer support, there was no community for women or people like us. So we really struggled, and it was incredibly isolating and debilitating at times to not have someone to share that lived experience with. And the organisation was born from a need. By the time we had our second child, we were being contacted through social media, friends of friends, at the school gates, the workplace. How did you have the children? How much did it cost? What are the legalities involved? And we knew that we had to use our experience as a force for good to help others like us not feel the way we did when we went on our journey. We've had a mix of really, really good experiences and really bad experiences through healthcare, specifically maternity and support with mental health. And with our third child, we both suffered greatly with birth trauma, and it did lead to further perinatal mental health issues. My postnatal journey, as I birthed our third child, was incredibly, incredibly difficult and debilitating. And I really did need that additional support from mental health teams to support me through that. And it's something that we need to address and talk about, because, again, they're difficult, uncomfortable conversations to address, but if we don't address them and what the journey looks like and how it could be better in the future, we won't get that improvement for people moving forward. And there's a few pictures of obviously our little family. So I've talked a little bit about our difficulties, and I want to talk about the barriers that LGBT plus people face and how that can impact their mental health and what that journey looks like, so that by the time people come to yourselves or other healthcare professionals within perinatal mental health,
I've got my camera off.
they know what that journey looks like.
Did you
because
know that Helena got murdered?
That journey. Sorry, someone's mic's on, just in case they wasn't sure. Just so you know what those barriers look like, how difficult the journey can be, and why their mental health may have been depreciated because of those barriers. And it looks like a rather difficult and stressful circle of negativity, but we have to talk about these uncomfortable discussions and talk around the barriers. You know, the lack of funding, the lack of access to NHS funding, and whilst we know the Women's Health Strategy changed last July, again, we're still having conversations with people whose ICBs are not giving them access and will not be giving them access from April. So it's still a postcode lottery and people are still being impacted. Finances, if you can't get access to funding, having the ability to finance going through private treatment, if that's your chosen route. For some people it's not financially viable, and their situation, if they're from an area of social deprivation, they're in an area that doesn't have access to the funding, it's just not viable for them. It can be incredibly difficult and push them down an alternative route. Not having a partner. Sometimes people will go through and start a family by choice as a single person, but some people want a partner there, but they want to ensure that they have a child before it's too late, bearing in mind their fertility. So that can still be difficult to go on that journey, even if it's by choice on your own. Having a donor, if you need a sperm donor, we also see a lot of people in our community now, and even the heterosexual community, that now need an egg donor, and there's a huge egg shortage at the moment globally. So having to access an egg and a sperm donor can be, additionally, leading back to finances, additionally debilitating in regards to the finances that you may need available to then have one or more donors. Opinions, people's opinions, whether it be family, friends, co-workers, it's really, really difficult to deal with people's opinions. Sometimes people in our community come to us and say, people accept me within my family, my friends, my workplace, who I am, but now I want to have a family. They can't understand, why don't you adopt? Why don't you go down alternative routes? Why don't you just be happy with who you are? Unfortunately, people are really happy to pass opinion on our community regardless, but when it comes to having a family, it can lead to further difficulties, even leading to some people losing relationships breaking down because of that. Which leads into support networks. We need to have a good, strong support network around us. Any parent does on that parenting journey. But if you haven't got that support network and you have lost family or friends, or haven't got anyone around you to support you on that journey, not even if they understand, but if they can be there to listen and guide you through it, that can be really debilitating too. Having educated professionals, people within the health service who actually have an understanding of what that journey looks like, whether it be home insemination, fertility treatment, or if you've had a known donor, what does that journey look like, and does that professional have an educated understanding of who you are? That can be really difficult, again, as well for the professional, because if they're not being given the training and the tools to understand who we are as people, our identities, sexuality, our journeys, how can they give you the best care? It's really, really difficult. Prior trauma, if you've had prior trauma, whether it be domestic violence, abuse, difficulty as a child, anything that you've been through, prior miscarriage or loss, failed cycles, that can lead to your mental health depreciating also. Again, it's another additional barrier to get over. Coming out, some people haven't come out to their doctor, they haven't come out to their workplace, they haven't come out to even their family in certain respects. So having to consistently come out again is incredibly difficult, but for some people to come out for the first time because they're going on this parenting journey can add that additional barrier and that additional layer of stress. General discrimination, you'd be surprised the amount of people that come to us that have had incredible difficulties through health system, through society as a whole, in regards to their journey, but also in regards to who they are. And that is still a problem, especially at the moment, specifically for trans and non-binary people. People making assumptions, people say, oh, it doesn't matter, it was a mistake, I got it wrong, or they got it wrong, it doesn't matter. Assumptions can be really harmful, again, leading back to the impact it has on people's mental health. You could be the 25th, 26th person that week, that month, that year to have misgendered someone or made an assumption about their journey, and that can mean they're on the precipice of that hill and that breaks down their mental health. And it's so important to take a step back and not make those assumptions. Dealing with genetic loss. Some parents are the non-bio parents and they're the birthing parents, so with reciprocal IVF or shared motherhood. And some people say it's really, really difficult. I feel like a surrogate. I feel like I'm far removed from this, although I'm birthing. And then for non-bio, non-gestational parents who are the partner or partners, that can be really difficult as well to deal with the genetic loss. They're never going to look like me. They're not part of me and they're not genetically related. That's really, really difficult. And that can have an impact on relationships, bond with baby or babies, and the situation as a whole. Dealing with poor care and delays, if you're experiencing poor care or there's delays in the system, we all know how stretched the system is at the moment. But imagine doing that with all these barriers and needing that assistance and needing that extra support. It can be really, really difficult. Dealing with power and privilege, you know, being someone going into a system whereby you're being told by an expert or someone who's a specialist that they know best, they know what you need. They're in a position of power and privilege because they know that they can dictate your outcome, and having to stand there and advocate for yourself can be incredibly difficult in those situations, and knowing that you are coming from a place of barriers, of implications, of difficulty prior to even getting to that point. Dealing with the law, the UK law doesn't support all paths to parenthood for our families, unfortunately. And again, that can be difficult, push you down alternative heteronormative routes, or push you into getting married or civil partnered because you want to ensure your child's on the birth certificate. All these things can really impact your journey. No representation, it's a huge one. Walking into a waiting area where there's no pictures of same-sex couples or a trans dad or a non-binary person, or knowing that actually you're not represented on forms, you're having to consistently override the system. The midwife can't write down who you are, your identity, because the system isn't fit for purpose and isn't built for people like us. Again, can be really, really isolating, make people feel incredibly othered. Dealing with the intersectionality of being from different minority groups, being Black and queer, being Muslim, being from a different religious or cultural community, having additional needs, and being LGBT+, ticking multiple boxes, and also dealing with those additional barriers that you have to deal with, that additional level of discrimination you get from being from those other communities, can be incredibly taxing. And as you can see, all of those barriers, all of those difficulties just mount up. And it leads straight into mental health. It leads into, if you've already got mental health difficulties or you've had mental health issues in the past, they can creep back up, they can surface their head, and that can impact your journey even further. And again, going back into the office, a lot of us have to start our journeys and consistently work. There are many women, dads, parents that actually have to go into the office and consistently work through these journeys, through pregnancy, go back early, and having a lack of support in the workplace is incredibly difficult. You need that support network. You need people around you to support you through that. So what are those implications? Loneliness, fear, feeling unsafe, again, relationships breaking down, low self-esteem, feeling that you can't advocate for yourself, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not going to be fit as a parent. Some people come to us and say, we've had to stop our journey, or I've had to stop because it's just been too much. It's just, I can't mentally, physically, I just can't continue anymore, or at the moment, and they have to delay it or even stop. Self-harm, suicide, these things do happen in our communities because journeys get that difficult, discrimination, it just gets too taxing, and this is the implications of all of those barriers. Bonding. I struggled with our first, being told I was not the real mum by one of the doctors, that she refused to deal with me. I really struggled with that, and it took me a year and a half to overcome that comment. That one sentence just was debilitating for me, and it really had an impact on my relationship with family and with my daughter. And these are the things we really need to think about. Exiting systems. Trans and non-binary people will, not only trans and non-binary people, but will exit the system. The items report shows that they don't feel safe to birth or be supported in the system because of the representation, because of the lack of understanding, all those other barriers. So people exit the system, they free birth, they put themselves possibly at risk of poor outcomes, and they don't get seen by people within the system. Again, the trust isn't there. Mental health depreciating even further, leading to other complications, leading to other issues, and that feeling of isolation, that leading back into trauma. All of these implications can lead to further things and can really impact people's journey. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of examples of microaggressions, assumptions and discrimination that people have fed back to us from our community. So interactions that have been had, I'm sorry, I don't know what that treatment is, can you explain? And it doesn't sound like that bad interaction, but a midwife who doesn't have an understanding of what someone's journey is, having to consistently explain what that journey is, the time, the money, the exhaustion of having to consistently come out and explain your journey, because the poor midwife or professional hasn't been given the training or tools to have an understanding of what that journey could look like. Could you ask your mum to wait outside while we examine you? Referring to the other parent. Whilst you may be giving perinatal mental health support to one parent, it impacts the other, and it can impact their mental health and impact that relationship. Surely it would have been easier and cheaper to have a one-night stand. You'd be surprised how often this comment has been said to us as a joke. Maybe there was good intent, maybe to break the ice, but again, it's really uncomfortable for those who have to hear it. So what about baby's dad? Have you got his medical history? And again, what's the language like? Do they refer to the donor as a dad? Is it donor? Is it other genetic parent? Ask the open questions. I don't want her, I want the real mum. Such a common one. You can't sign these forms. Can you wait here? Again, so many parents come to us and say non-birthing mother or parents been left outside because only dads have been let in, or I haven't been able to have access to my baby and my partner or partners. And I wrote my pronouns on the board behind my head on the bed. They still referred to me as she and spoke about me in third person. And that was a trans dad who ended up having to have a midwife advocate for them. The midwife stepped in, scolded the doctor outside. Shouldn't have to get to that point. We should always be taking the time to really understand and support the person. Ask those open questions to make sure we get it right. And I think this quote, and it came from a trans dad and one of the barriers project for Tommy's that we did. And he said, this is the queer experience in a gendered maternity system. It is not built for people like us. And how sad that people feel that the system is not built for them and that they have to go down alternative routes, or they have to just accept that this is the way it is. And unfortunately for our community, that is the case. Now, I'm just going to give another trigger warning that there will be talk of rape, difficult journeys and mental health. And I'm going to hand over now to Ellie. So Ellie, if you can take your put your camera on and put your mic on, and if you'd like to take over and share for me. And Ellie is one of our amazing mums from one of the families from our LGBT Mummies community, and she is bravely coming today to talk to you about her journey. So I'll pass over.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
I'm just feeding baby at the moment, so we'll see how we get on. So my name's Ellie, my pronouns are she, her. I have a wife and her pronouns are she, her, they, them. And we have a daughter who's 14 months old called Henrietta. And yeah, I just thought I would jump on to explain a little bit about my lived experience as a lesbian going through IVF and maternal mental health difficulties as well. So we started off, we knew that we were in a relationship, me and my wife, for a good number of years, and we got married and decided that we wanted to have children. we researched how to do that through the NHS, and there was no funding available to us. So we decided to go through private funding through the NHS. That was the only way that we were going to be able to afford to do treatment. Unfortunately, that all happened through COVID. So a lot of the appointments that we had were over the telephone. Originally, the GP didn't know how to refer us, if it was even possible for us to have any treatment. And we had to inform the GP of what we were entitled to and how to refer us and things like that. And as I'm sure most of you are aware, during COVID, the system looked very different. So pre-COVID, you could have like partners with you for appointments, whereas during COVID, I had to go into all the appointments on my own, other than the ones where we signed some paperwork. As a couple, that was the only appointment that we could have together. And for me, that was really difficult because as a young girl, I experienced rape and was sexually abused. So the intrusiveness of those IVF scans, all of the different difficulties all of the different appointments and things, I found them really, really, really upsetting and really, really triggering for my trauma, which obviously is not the hospital's fault, and you know, it's out of everyone's circumstances, but it was something that I found really difficult. And I think it's useful to kind of explain that when you can't conceive as easily as heterosexual couples, there's quite a lot of pressure on having a baby. So for me, we were kind of spoken through the options that we could do IUI, we could do IVF, and these were the success outcomes. We only had enough money to kind of give one IVF cycle a go, so we kind of put all of our eggs into one basket, and it meant that thankfully the cycle was successful, but there was a lot of pressure on that, and it meant that when I did get pregnant, I found it really difficult then to deal with like the morning sickness. Unfortunately, I was sick all the way through, and I found it really hard to have this idea of pregnancy, and then when I was actually pregnant, really struggling with the sickness and not feeling how I wanted to feel. And that really caused a decline in my mental health. The GP also told me to stop my medication that I was on. So I was on sertraline, which is supposedly now I understand is quite a safe medication to take during pregnancy, but they'd advised me to stop that medication. So not only was I was dealing with all this trauma from IVF and not feeling very comfortable in pregnancy, the GP told me to stop my medication. And another thing that happened during the IVF cycle, when they put the embryo back in, so the embryo transfer, I was told that I was going to be given some medication for sedation because I found the egg collection really difficult and traumatic. Unfortunately, they forgot to give me the sedation. So I got into the theatre and I said, "Oh, you're going to give me something," because I thought maybe it'd be gas and air or something like that. And they said, "Oh no, we should have given you that before." "Oh, never mind. I'll tell you what, I'll reassure you that it's going to be okay and we'll go ahead." And the doctor literally said, "Okay, I've reassured her, let's go ahead." And so I felt like I didn't have consent over that experience. And it was a really difficult way to start a pregnancy. That was something that I really wanted and was really like excited about and also scared about, but it just was a horrible start to something that should be lovely. And then in terms of like the maternity system, we had our booking scan over our booking appointment over the telephone. There was no space to go through like my partner's health history, like with the questions we said, we went through my health, and they didn't really know whether to take the sperm donor's health or my wife's health history for the form, and she could only fit one in, and it just kind of felt like we weren't catered for in that sense. And all of our maternity notes were online. All of our maternity notes were online, and I realised after the appointment that the midwife had ticked yes, that I was completely fine for mental health, and she hadn't even asked me how I was feeling or anything like that. So I was automatically on like the on like the okay list when really I was struggling already. And some of the things that we struggled with in terms of scans were the sonographer saying, so who does the baby look like? For us, we used an anonymous sperm donor, so it was going to be me and the sperm donor, so it just wasn't very nice for my wife to have to go through that and know that the baby wasn't, like, just another reassurance that this baby wasn't going to be genetically linked to them, and that was really difficult. Because we did IVF, we were put down as a high-risk pregnancy, and we were told that we were going to have an induction at 38 weeks. We asked why, and they said because it's IVF, that's just what happens, which I wasn't very comfortable with, and I felt like that consent had been taken away from me again, that I didn't understand the science behind it, and I was just told it was hospital policy, and there was no like explanation around anything. So thankfully I was able to look up some help through Birthrights, and I found some like really good support there, so I was able to advocate for myself, and my wife advocated for me to have this personalised care plan. But if I didn't know that existed, I would have been again through more trauma of just having to go through this system that wasn't equipped for us. And I think when you've got that mental health label, it does feel like you're written off, that you don't know exactly, like that you've just got this label and people just see you as this person with anxiety or this person with depression, rather than a person who has those issues but has different needs as well. So this personalised care plan that Birthrights helped me to create meant that Ali could stay with me overnight and we had like a private room during birth, which was incredible, and you know, something that really helped us. And I also found out about this campaign and support through My Body Back that was really useful in terms of there was like specialist midwives who had dealt with things like trauma and rape before, so they were able to give me like expert advice on how to navigate birth, because obviously I was worried that was going to re-traumatize me as well. I managed to tell the midwife when I was about 20 weeks that I was really struggling with my mental health. But because of that initial booking appointment, I did feel like it was then going to be really hard to explain that I was struggling when I'd been written down as fine. And I was told that I could be referred to specialist services, but the midwife didn't really know what they were or what they were going to do. So she said to me, I can refer you to this place and I can refer you to the mental health team. Not really quite sure what they'll do, but would you like that? And I said yes, and thankfully they were really helpful. But it felt like there wasn't enough information to give me the support that I needed to make those decisions again. So yeah, I'm under the mental health team now, and I see a psychiatrist on video calls, which is really helpful, especially having a young baby now. So I see her once a month, every 6 weeks, for like a medication review. But so I was referred to them and I was about 20 weeks pregnant, and I'm still waiting for one-to-one support through a therapist, and Henrietta's 14 months now, so it's been a long wait and it's still going to continue. But so that's kind of my experience. It's been really difficult. It's been amazing having the baby that, you know, we always wanted to, but I think it's just really important to highlight some of those barriers that, like Laura said, that there's so much that people don't necessarily understand when it's a non-heterosexual couple, even down to like the forms registering at the GP surgery. Henrietta, it was the mother's details, father's details, and it just the system isn't designed for us, and it just feels like more barriers after barriers. And when you're already stuck in that place of trauma and pain, it's really difficult to then access extra support. So yeah, hopefully that made sense and it wasn't too much of a distraction, and hopefully that will help inform like your practice as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and that's so brave. And Henrietta was fine, bubbly as always. I really appreciate you bravely sharing, because that's really something difficult to share with a room full of strangers. And I hope that those on the call appreciate it and understand how difficult that was as well. Thank you so much. Oh, so just to finish off on from what Ellie has shared, how can I support LGBT plus service users' perinatal experiences? What can you change in the way you serve people to ensure that they feel, not like Ellie and Ali did, but they feel supported and understood? Your role, what is your role? It's there to provide care and be at that extension of that support network. We always stress in a lot of our training with midwives, sometimes you are the only person in that person's support network or that family's support network. They may not have any family, friends that are supporting them on this journey. So you may be that one glimmer of hope that will support them through a difficult journey. So be that support network and listen, engage and empathise. Take that time. And of course, we know the system's under pressure. People haven't got this time. And that's what we hear. There's no time. There's no time to take the time to have these conversations. But if you can, try listen, engage and empathise and take that small amount of time to really get an understanding of the journey and the barriers. And it's recognising that individualised service user need. What did their journey look like? Not every same-sex couple, not every trans dad, not every LGBT plus person's experience is different, is the same. We're all different. So understand what that looked like and recognising triggers in language as well with perinatal mental health, making sure that it's language, eye, body. How are they explaining to you their journey? What haven't they said that could lead to a specialist referral, whereas you may need additional specialist support that you need to refer them to. Maybe it's CBT, maybe it's a psychologist, but if you understand and listen and take that time to really read between the lines, what are you being told and how can you support them to make that specialist referral if needed? Taking time to really be considerate, making sure that verbal, eye, body, you're looking at someone, you're taking that time, whether it be on a call or face to face, to really listen. Sometimes listening and turning away, people will shut down and they'll stop because they don't feel you're taking the time to respect and understand their needs. And taking the time to educate yourself, things like this, it's wonderful that there's so many of you on here, but also go away, follow organisations like us, Stonewall, other organisations for marginalised minority groups and see what they're talking about. Educate yourself from there, follow families, follow other people, speak to MVPs. They have a huge role in your local trust and how you can improve service user experiences. Speak to them so you can really hear what people want to hear. Provides a positive experience. It means that you're empowered in your role, you know how to support that woman or father or person, and it means that you're being an ally. Taking that time to really engage and listen to us means that you're taking that time. And if you see things that aren't right, you think, actually, I may be heterosexual, but I'm going to be an ally. This form doesn't look right to me. It's not inclusive. Could I send an email to management? Could I send an anonymous email? Could I say that actually something needs changing in the system to ensure all people, regardless of LGBT plus, whatever group that people are from, are supported and represented and understood? You can do it. And you can influence change. You can be the person that made that change, that makes someone like Ellie and Ali or a family like ours feel supported and see that a change has been made because you stepped in. And that's so, so crucial. So those considerations, making sure you read the notes. Again, we know that it's down to time a lot of the time, but asking their pronouns and offering yours. My name's Sarah, my pronouns are she, her, what are yours? Someone might look at you blankly and go, I don't know what that means. That's absolutely fine. But for those that know what it means, we understand and we appreciate, and it feels like a safe space from that moment on. Asking open questions where someone can't answer yes or no, taking that time. I'd love to hear more about your journey if you'd be happy to share. That's such a positive opening to an experience and interaction with someone, telling me about your journey so that I can learn from you and I can know how to give you personalised care. Addressing all parties attending, it's not just the people in front of you, because again, in perinatal mental health, we know that you're normally speaking to the woman or birthing person, but actually addressing the language of the partner or partners involved. If there's a known donor, if you're having those conversations and engagement, talking about how is your partner doing? Oh, I understand you have a known donor and he's co-parenting. How is that going? How are they feeling? Because that gets fed back when they go back into the home. I had an appointment where my wife went, oh, ex-midwife asked how you were today. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really nice. She was like, yeah, she just wanted to know that you were okay. Such a tiny, tiny glimmer of kindness can make such a difference to the whole family, to the whole mental health journey. Considering those past traumas, triggers, past treatment, failed cycles, care and abuse, if you take that into consideration, again, if you get those nitpicks of words and triggers that people are bringing in or that they're sharing with you, make sure that you consider that with what their mental health looks like and how they need to be supported moving forward. And being conscious of language, again, if you do make a mistake, everyone's human. We understand as a community, not everyone's going to get it right. You may misgender someone, use the wrong pronouns, refer to them in the wrong way. Take a moment, apologies, correct yourself and move on. Don't make it about you. Don't make it uncomfortable, because that's, again, when people exit the system, won't share with you again, hold things back that then impact the care that they receive. Empathise. You don't know or understand. I know how you feel. I understand. It's quite a frustrating thing to be told by someone that actually hasn't gone through what you've gone through. I'm so sorry how difficult it's been for you. How can I help you more? Tell me more. Such an open, positive way, and makes you feel that someone's empathising with you. And validate us. You know, if you see that there's areas of improvement, again, bring those forward, bring them to account and tell us as a community, I've seen that this isn't working in the system. I've put it forward because I think it will really help. What do you think? We want to be involved and help you co-produce that too. And be allies. If you see discrimination, if you see things not working, just call them out. There's a list of resources and books and links there for you, and I will get Celeste to share that. So it just gives you a bit more information to different reporting, different insights into what our journeys look like, and some really great books. One I would tell everyone to get is Supporting Queer Birth by AJ Silver, who's a friend of ours, and they are amazing. And they talk about lots of different LGBT plus families and what our journeys look like through birth. And if anyone does have any questions, you're more than happy to share them now, or you can share them separately or on the chat. But we just want to provide a safe and inclusive perinatal mental health support for all people, regardless of who you are. But for the LGBT plus community, I hope this has been of use to people. And if anyone wants to reach out and wants to follow us or speak to us about educational or resources or anything like that, let us know. We do all of that. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop presenting.
Thank you so much.
I can't see anyone. So
I can't put anything in the chat box, but I was going to put something in there that just thanked you and your co-host Ellie as well. But no, that's really informative. Thanks so much.
No problem. Has anyone got any questions that they wanted to direct Ellie?
I do have a question, and it's about language on documentation that we use, and how, like, it just feels like we're so far behind with language, and it's so tricky because I work at a mother and baby unit, you know, and how we can really think about more inclusive language and be more kind of in line with where we should be at, you know, LGBT plus, you know, communities. And it's just a tricky conversation I have a lot about how can we make this better. So I don't know whether you've got any specific advice around that, like language on leaflets and things like that would help, because it is tough to try and work a way through that.
Yeah, and again, it's not about erasing women or men and, you know, going gender neutral. You know, there's so many different ways, different types of language that you can use. You can use gender neutral language where you say parents, but again, that then does erase women and men, or mothers and fathers. You know, we use additive language, so adding it in. It's a bit longer, it's a little bit uglier, but women and birthing people, woman or pregnant person, mother, father or parent. You know, that kind of language is really positive. It means that no one's been erased, everyone's included, everyone feels represented, and then it's a safe space. And it's so important, language, because that's the moment that when you see that form, like Ellie said, you see that form, you see that poster, you see that language, and you go, oh, it's only for heterosexual people. It's not for people like me. There's going to be a workaround. I'm going to have to cross through the form. It's going to be an awkward conversation. I'm going to have to come out again. Additive language answers all of that. You can use directive language as well. So your care, your birth, your partner, your baby. But again, sometimes that can get quite cumbersome and quite difficult. So additive language, positive, includes everyone, always works. But again, if there's that space, we understand the system can't be changed all the time. There's forms that can't be changed because the software has designated fields. But if there is workarounds, the fact that people are, like yourself, are asking that question and trying to make that change, for us is such a positive. Now, I'm really sorry the system says this, but this is what I'm going to do. And as a team, this is the process we will do until we can get it changed. But do you know what? I'm going to moan about it because I think it's not fair as well. What a great ally, what a great thing to say, and what a positive experience. So definitely using additive language. And if anyone complains about additive language, then they have a problem with our community. They're not inclusive for all people. Additive is for everyone. Does that help?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Did anyone have any other questions or anything for Ellie or myself?